Upon learning the conditions of one's mind, as you shared, I summarized the internal disposition of a processing dysfunction. From a different mind to altered decisions, from decisions to their evaluations, from their evaluations of no understanding to your displacement, from imposed displacement to your withdrawal. From withdrawal is the acceptance of this normalcy known as Conscience 1, as you described in video segment 20. You also mentioned developing as Conscience number 2. Can you show me what life is like through that perspective?
Conscience number 2, as I best remember, operates merely on a perceptive level of one's feelings. That means self-awareness in an intentional direction is replaced by self-preservation and interest. As I covered in the last video, if emotions or knowledge is neglected, it changes the way a person interacts around others. Conscience number 2 swallows the internal belief that influences don't care and that their movements are centered around control. Moral direction may become obsolete, and character pathologically declines, as characterized by the disposition of spiritual disconnection, survivalism, and self-medication. The heart is compromised and egocentrism becomes a way of life. This is just one angle of conscience number 2, the pathology of disassociation and self-obsession. Now let's view conscience number 2 of one with high emotional sensitivity and moral forgetfulness. All rules are then perceived through the lens of human interference, festering anger for every act that this person processes as social injustice. You can imagine how this person would move in the presence of authority, the pathology of rebellion and lawlessness. Under the extreme conditions where intense feelings compromise conscience, this person may lose self to demonic possession, as characterized by impulsive behavior and conscience disassociation. And let's not forget the perspective of the individual who'd rather lose self to another entity than to be in the company of certain influences. This can happen when a person feels cornered by influences they fear. In summary, an altered conscience associates oppressive treatment to cruel influences, while a healthy conscience associates oppressive treatment to character growth. With an altered conscience, being surrounded by a loving environment is mandatory to maintain mental stability. It is my understanding that it's the responsibility of influences who educate Christianity to enact the fundamentals taught by their faith. I don't say this to judge, but I say it to emphasize the importance of connecting and cultivating relationships. In my authentic conscience, I believe that it doesn't matter how legalistic a person is if their heart isn't in the right place. That is what I processed when I read the Bible. Yes, I'm no example of quality character. That is why I'm trying to find the sources behind my psych dysfunction. And now, let's continue with exploring impositions, ideologies, exposure, and replication. I will immerse you in the reality where the condition of conscience number 2 is reinforced by social behaviors and propaganda. Maneuvering through life with interior conditions, as I covered in the last segment, now I'll immerse you through the lens of energy and information processing. My whole life I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. What looked good on the surface felt off in my authentic conscience. For example, if an unsettled conflict represented a tomb, then the accumulation of unresolved emotions would create a cemetery, living each day among influences who you felt hurt you, but interactions continue as if life is good. But because of an altered conscience, the belief was created that one is a rag doll to the desires of his environment. Second example is experiencing deferred treatment. Won't shake your hand, ignores eye contact, leaves you out of invitations. I'm referring to strangers you've never met and people you try to connect with. It doesn't matter if it's in dating, professionalism, or even in religious circles. The avoidance is felt and psych is impacted. This example demonstrates how social behaviors reinforces the pathology of psych withdrawal and living in one's head. In more extreme cases, talent, efforts, and hard work go unrecognized. Everything that is done is compared to another person, and so pathology changes into not aspiring for anything. This is the psych of one who does what he can, but is consistently shut down by influences. Lastly, I'm going to share another perspective with this story. Imagine someone fell off a tree and gets severely injured. Those observing, instead of calling a doctor, started laughing. They took pictures, made humor among each other, and created narrative to entertain their followers. The group criticized the injured person for his decision to climb up the tree and evaluated his tolerance of pain. He cried for help, but it was denied as they walked away and abandoned him in distress. This story is just one example of what happens on Earth, from abortion to abandoned children and a neglected elderly. This concludes my perspective on psych alterations, as I continue to share the different states of imposition.